So we've had a special request from one of the wonderful teachers at BIS for a soup or stew that uses a lot of ingredients from your pantry or your freezer. Things that you don't necessarily have to go out to the supermarket to get all the time. And so I've come up with something that my mom used to make, although mine will probably be a little bit different, and that is lentil stew. So as you can see, a lot of the ingredients we have here are either going to be from your freezer or from your pantry. They're canned or not fresh. The only ingredients that we might have had to go out to the grocery store to get is going to be some kind of sausage. Today I'm actually going to use boerewurst, which is just an herbed sausage that you can find really inexpensively at any store. I've got some bacon pieces here that I did have to get from the store, and a lot of people will keep onion in their pantry, so I've got a large onion that I've diced here, and also a lot of people keep fresh garlic in their pantry, and so I have 4 cloves of chopped garlic in this bowl right here. Everything else I already had in the house. So I have frozen vegetables here. Now, these frozen vegetables are in a sauce, and that's okay because they're going to go in a soup, so they're still going to taste wonderful. And I have 2 boxes, or about 600 grams of frozen vegetables. I also have in a bowl here with just some warm water, some chicken bouillon cubes, 2 chicken bouillon cubes, and we're going to add more water to our stew later on. I've got salt and pepper. I have quinoa. This one is red, but you could use white as well. We're going to use a little bit of this. I have my cumin tub again from some previous recipes. I also have oregano. I have 1 can of lentils. And I have 1 can of diced tomatoes. And with all of these things, we're going to make a super tasty stew. We are going to start by cooking our sausage. And sausage, especially fresh sausage, soft sausage, is a little bit tricky because it tends to get liquid in the sausage as you're cooking, and then the sausage can burst open, which we don't really want because we're going to slice our sausage very carefully to go into our stew later. So I've preheated this pan to like medium low or just a little bit above, and you'll notice that I've got, well, this is a vegetable peeler. I've got this because it has a nice pointy tip, but any small knife, a good sharp knife will do. I have a lid here that I'm going to use, and I even have a small cup of water because I'm kind of going to steam the sausage at a lower temperature to make sure that my sausage doesn't burst. We're not really worried about the sausage being super brown because it's going to go in a stew anyway, but we do want it to be cooked all the way through. So you can hear a little bit of sizzle because I already had a warm pan. Now, all that I'm going to do is add a little water. I don't want to drown them. See? Created lots and lots of steam, and it poofed up a little bit. For now, I'm going to cover this because I don't want all that steam to escape, but there's a lot of it. My goodness. Hello. There we go. And I'm not going to leave that like that for long because I don't want my sausage to burst, and it's a great way to get it to burst if we leave it be. Alrighty, so I am preheating my soup pot to get step number 2 started. You can see here that after about 15 minutes of cooking, we have finished sausages. So I'm going to set those aside and I'll be slicing them later. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to start by cooking our bacon in this pan here. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil. Maybe a tablespoon or 15 milliliters of olive oil. And then we're just going to dump our bacon in. Be very careful. We don't want to splash. There we are. In goes the bacon. Now, even if it sticks a little bit to the bottom, that's okay. It will come up, I promise you. So now that our bacon is almost done, we're going to add our garlic and our onions, and we're going to saute those in the bacon fat. Make sure to stir those up very well, and we're going to saute this until the onions are a little bit see-through and a little bit softer. All right, this is looking excellent. So now it's time to add a lot of stuff all at once. Number one, the tomatoes. Number two, the lentils. And you can add the liquid in the can, no problem. And number three, the vegetables. And if you want, remember this came with like a butter sauce that we don't really need. We can take out the butter sauce part and still get lots and lots of vegetables. I'm going to take it out because we don't really need the butter sauce, and I'm going to give this a stir because that's getting really full. And then finally, we're going to add water and our bouillon cubes. And Dani wishes she was using a bigger soup pot. Ha ha ha. Okay. Here is our bouillon cubes. And now I have here about 500 milliliters of water that I'm going to add. Or as much as I can without spilling over the pot. There we go. Barely made it. We're going to stir that in very gently. And we need this to boil. We need this to boil. And we want our vegetables to thaw out. So you might want to turn your heat up, not too much, but you might want to turn your heat up to maybe medium high or a little bit above medium so that this has a chance to boil. Now while we wait for our soup to boil, I thought that I would slice up my sausages. I've let them cool down a little bit because the harder the sausage, the easier it is to slice. This is a very, very sharp knife, so Mom and Dad should probably help you with this. We're going to slice our sausage just like this into thick, but not too thick of slices. Just like this. Now let's take a look back at our boiling soup. Our soup is almost ready to boil, so I'm going to start putting in the seasonings and spices that I like to use. First off, I'm going to start with some oregano, and I'm going to use a teaspoon of oregano. Now, I'm going to use a half a teaspoon, which is the 2.5 milliliter spoon, because it fits into my jar more easily. So I'm going to use 2 of these spoonfuls of oregano. I'm also going to use 1 of these spoonfuls, so a half a teaspoon or 2.5 milliliters of cumin, ground cumin. And you know what? I love cumin so much, I'm going to throw a little extra in there, but you don't have to do that. I'm also going to add paprika. I'm going to add another 1 of these spoons, so half a teaspoon or 200, my goodness, 2.5 milliliters of paprika. And I like spicy stew, so I'm going to add some pili. If you're not a big fan of spicy, then you don't need to add that. I added a half a teaspoon again. And now the last spice that we're going to add, the last spices, are just normal salt and pepper. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. We'll put about 20, I guess, twists in there. And then black pepper. Come on. I have no idea how much I just did there, but basically, I did it by looking. There we go. And now I'm going to give this a stir, and we should be ready to put our very last ingredient in, which is our quinoa. If you forgot about that, I have our quinoa sitting next to me, and I rinsed it with cold water. So we're ready here. We can add the quinoa. There's lots of good steam and bubbles are coming. So here is the rinsed quinoa. I'm going to dump that in there. There is 65 grams of that, by the way. It'll say that in the recipe, but I realized I completely forgot to say it out loud. So 65 grams of quinoa right in there. And last, but certainly not least, is our sliced sausage. Very gently. My pot is very full. And now we're going to give that a stir. And this is going to need to cook all on its own at about medium heat for 15 minutes to let the quinoa soak up some of the soup liquid and cook all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and cover this pot. It'll just help it to cook a little bit better, keeping the temperature on medium, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. And 15 minutes later, and we have a delicious sausage and lentil stew. You can see here I've just made some garlic toast and sliced it up to eat with it. And here is our wonderful soup. Enjoy.